So what I'm saying is we should get our priorities right. Look at TED Fund, for example. TED Fund is used for physical infrastructure, for research, and publications, and then for training. And TED Fund is once you are an academic in the university, you qualify for for it as long as you meet the requirements. But what I'm saying is TED Fund can be skewed towards these courses. We can fund more of these courses than the attention we are giving to the others. That's all I'm saying. So there's need for us to prioritize the funding, and that's because we have scarce resources.
Professor Waleke.
In today's universities, how do they get their money? Many universities get money from maybe PG programs.
We'll get into that.
Not much comes from endowments. You also have from alumni. Alumni support you find mainly with older generation universities. And commercial services in many universities too are not generating much. And that's why I am saying that the government should
Professor, a very quick one. Professor, a very quick one for you. The Nigerian government, before we get to this time of scarcity, the government over the decades have funded these federal universities, these public universities. So the question is, where did all the money go?
Yes, Boston, you realize that as we speak today, we have 40 federal universities. If you go to the NEC website, you will find that 40 federal universities, 46 state universities, and then private universities about 69. Although 8 of the licensed private universities, those that were licensed last year, are yet to commence operation. So we have 40 federal universities and 46 state universities. The number of universities, of course, have grown. And if you look at the budgetary allocation to education over the years, in the last 10 years, we have not done up to 5% allocation to education, whereas the standard, or what is recommended by the World Bank, is even 25% minimum. And what we have allocated to education is pretty less than that. And to make matters worse, even the allocation to education is more of recurrent. Look at the 2018 budget, for example. We have over 400 billion allocated to for recurrent expenditure in education, and very paltry sum, just 200 a little shy of 200 billion allocated for capital, and that's education as a whole, not for higher education. And that's also why I want to submit here quickly that there's need for us to look at other countries' models and separate the Ministry of Education, split the ministry into Ministry of Education and the Ministry for Higher Education. In Malaysia, that is what is done. They have a Ministry for Higher Education. In Indonesia, that is what is done. They have a Ministry for Higher Education. And because they have done that, okay, it is not surprising today that you find Nigerians, a good number of academics going to Malaysia for higher degrees. Malaysia started that in 2004 when they split that ministry. By 2015, one Prime Minister, Razak, came and still fused it. But 2 years after, he realized that there was need to also split it. So what I'm saying is when you split it, you tend to now focus more, give more attention to tertiary education. And if you look at the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, it talks about putting emphasis on vocational education, technical education, and establishing post-university skills acquisition centers. These are the kinds of ventures or programs we should put our scarce money into, and not trying to wait until we have enough money to fund the entire university system, the way it is today. So the first thing is to recognize that we need to put more money in education. But in putting that more money in education, we have to prioritize it. We have to look at disciplines that are critical to economic development, given what we are facing today. In future, that may be relaxed. But for now, I'm saying more attention should be given to science, technology, engineering, and agriculture. And even mining. We have universities today running geology and mining. If we want to diversify, we have to pay more attention to them, give them more funding. Because the resources are scarce. If the resources were not scarce, I would have said, okay, you can
Professor, let's take a quick break. Let's take a quick break at this point. Professor Uche Owaleke from Nasarawa State University. We have a few more questions, discussion when we come back. What about the teachers and the students? And then we have some interesting conversations still around the economy and business of running private universities in Nigeria. That's today's business. Let's come back to you in 2. Okay, let's continue that conversation about the state of Nigerian universities, the business and economy. Live to us from our Abuja studios, Professor Uche Owaleke, who is the head of banking and finance at the Nasarawa State University. Professor, thank you very much for hanging in there with us. A very interesting conversation today. So let's talk a little bit about the private universities. There are concerns that the tuition fees are so high. They are way out of this world. You work in a state university. Do these tuitions go into teachers or lecturers like yourself getting well paid? Or who does this money, this very high tuition, whose pockets do they go?
Well, let me start by saying that, you see, the business of running a university is an expensive one. Yes, the tuition in private universities you could say is on the high side. But again, one thing is giving, and that's the fact that many of these private universities have, world-class facilities. I am a lecturer, a full-time lecturer in public university, but I also, visit a private university. And I've also been on accreditation assignments to private universities. So I know that some of them, have facilities that are comparable to what you find elsewhere. So those facilities, to put them in place, of course, require a lot of money. And the private universities are also employing lecturers. They're also paying lecturers. You find that for those teaching in the public universities, they are highly subsidized. Public university funding is highly subsidized in Nigeria today because I don't know that what the federal government even releases or even state governments release most of the time don't cover even recurrent expenditure, let alone do capital projects. So that explains why you have high tuition fees in private universities.
Are you lecturers?
Course, the universities to spend to maintain this standard and ensure that their programs get accredited by the National Universities Commission. So the reason for high tuition fee is not far-fetched. And that's because of the business, as I said, of running a university is an expensive one.
Yeah, Professor, one of the oldest universities in the world, Oxford University, about a week ago in the news, floating a bond maturing in the 100-year bond, one of the longest of history, to improve the state of this university has been on the ground. So, do you think we can actually run universities like successful businesses on the public side and state universities in Nigeria? Do you think we can run them, not just institutions of higher learning, but as an economic centers?
Yes, I know that the private sector, has a lot of role to play in improving the services that we have in the universities today. I'm aware that some public universities have gone into partnership with the private sector in setting up structures like students' hostels that used to be the preoccupation of just the government. On the issue of raising bonds, I am not too sure that we are yet there